In the high-octane world of Formula One, a seismic shift has just occurred. The FIA has recently announced a series of updates to the sporting and technical regulations for the remainder of the 2024 Formula One season. These changes promise to make the second half of the season even more thrilling and unpredictable. From updates to the braking system and tire testing, to new rules on penalty applications and drivers stopping on track during qualifying, these changes are something that all teams will need to carefully review and adapt to before the season continues. The big question is, how much can they actually improve under these new regulations? Formula One is a sport that is constantly evolving and upgrading, and 2024 is no exception. The second half of the season will see a host of changes, starting with one of the most significant and intriguing updates, the braking system. More specifically, the brake circuits and pressure distribution. According to the new regulation 11.1, any system or mechanism that can produce systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle is now forbidden. This rule suggests that a team may have found a way to manipulate the braking system beyond the typical front-rear brake bias shifts, which were previously exploited by Mercedes' Brake Magic system. This means a team has likely developed an innovative braking control system that improves braking not just front to back, but also in a pattern of left front, left rear, and right rear. This could have a massive impact on corner performance. The implementation of such a specific mid-season regulation indicates one of two things. Either the FIA observed or received reports from other teams that a certain team was exploiting a gray area in the regulations, similar to the infamous DAS system, or the governing body missed this loophole in their initial regulations and are now closing it. This new rule will force teams to comply with the intended spirit of the regulations. It's also worth noting that teams often modulate the rear side of the car, specifically with the diffuser and how locked or unlocked it is. Vector braking, like the diffuser, can be a powerful tool for improving balance and cornering performance. If these changes are as impactful as they seem, we can expect to see significant adjustments from almost all teams on the grid. And this is just the beginning. Another major update is the introduction of mule car testing, or the TMC 1010. This new regulation allows teams to use a car at any track running time, provided the car complies with the current regulations of any of the 4 calendar years immediately prior to the championship year. This means teams can build cars based on the chassis from the current season or the last 4 seasons, including the pre-ground effect era, to test future products on track. This will be particularly important for the upcoming 2026 regulations and for narrowing the gap to Red Bull. In 2024, the primary goal will be to understand and prepare for the 2026 regulations, which promise to bring significant changes in development and engine power. These mule tests will be fascinating to watch, as the cars will undergo minimal modifications for the purpose of testing desired components. Teams like Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes, who are still working on their 2024 upgrades, will benefit greatly from this opportunity to get closer to Red Bull by the start of 2025. Red Bull's Christian Horner and Max Verstappen have stated that they believe they have reached the performance ceiling with the RB20, so this could be a crucial period for their rivals. Another new rule introduced by the FIA is the carrying over of time penalties. We've seen drivers, particularly Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen, being penalized multiple times during a race, but serving these penalties throughout the race often had little impact. Now, 5 or 10-second penalties can be carried over to the next race if the driver is unclassified in the current race, retires, or if the penalty is in addition to pit lane drive-throughs or stop-and-go penalties. However, a driver must complete more than 90% of the race distance to be considered classified. This new rule aims to deter teams from trying to exploit penalties, as seen when Lando Norris served a 5-second penalty before retiring his car in Austria. Another fascinating change is set to take place regarding car stopping during the qualifying process, prompted by the incident involving Carlos Sainz in China. According to the updated Article 39.6, any driver whose car stops on the track in any area other than the pit lane during the qualifying session or the sprint qualifying session and receives physical assistance will not be permitted to take any further part in that session. This rule was somewhat anticipated, as seen when Sergio Perez asked his racing engineer to push his car out of the gravel in Silverstone, only to be told that this would be considered mechanical assistance, leading to automatic disqualification. To simplify, if a car stops on track and the driver manages to get it going again on their own, the qualifying process can continue without issue. Previously, the regulations stated that any driver whose car stopped on track in any area other than the pit lane during the session would not be able to continue with the qualifying process. This led to protests from teams like Aston Martin, who were heavily affected by this rule during Saturday's sessions. While this update is a step in the right direction, there are still scenarios where a car stopping in the middle of the track could cause a double yellow flag or a red flag, forcing other drivers to abandon their fast laps. If the car that stopped manages to get running again, the flags would have been raised unnecessarily. Formula One could take a page from other championships like IndyCar, where a driver who causes a red flag during qualifying loses their two fastest laps, and if they cause a yellow flag, they lose one of their fastest laps. This allows other drivers to continue without any consequences. These changes are intriguing and will undoubtedly lead to interesting developments in 2024, especially since many of these incidents have occurred in the first 14 races, prompting the FIA to revise the rulebook more extensively than usual. Whether these changes will lead to better racing or expose certain teams' braking systems remains to be seen. Recently, Red Bull protested the legality of McLaren and Mercedes front wings, specifically their flexibility, leading to a race full of sensors in Spa to ensure compliance. While this is a positive step, every rule change has its critics, and we will have to wait and see how other teams react to these changes. It's likely that the teams most affected by these changes will be the ones to protest the loudest. Red Bull has stated that there aren't many changes to their car, although they will continue with upgrades. Max Verstappen himself acknowledged that while they always strive for more performance, sometimes it's about maintaining their current level, which is incredibly challenging. He noted that it's tough not to compare their performance to last year's, but operating at such a high level is something that may be more appreciated in hindsight. Even if they don't have the quickest car, their mentality remains focused on getting back to that level. With all these changes in mind, what do you think they will bring to the cars in the grid in general? More specifically, do you believe they will enhance the racing experience for all 20 drivers on the grid? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Formula One and want to stay updated with the latest news, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Keep the pedal to the metal, and we'll see you at the next race.